ask Mr. Porter a quick question. Oftentimes on this committee, or just when we're talking about these environmental issues in general, it often gets deduced down to very, black and white, very, simple style issues. But I wanted to specifically ask you about your hearing that you had on the earthquakes in Parker County not too long ago, and I believe in Azle. You had about 1,000 people show up to that meeting. And tell us just very quickly, people were very concerned about that. Is that right?
Yes, you are correct, Mr. Congressman. They were extremely concerned about that. And, of course, we at the Commission are concerned about it. We're trying to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on as far as the science and what the evidence is showing us. We have moved to hire a seismologist at the Railroad Commission. In fact, I believe interviews of that seismologist are starting today. For that position, we're trying to gain a clear understanding of exactly what's happening and what kind of activity, if any, that we need to do at the Commission. When people are having problems with their homes, they are, of course, extremely concerned, as the folks in Azle were.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up again is that, what it is oftentimes on this committee, it gets the argument gets very black and white, Republican versus Democrat type issues. But in Azle, that is a very, very, very conservative area. Probably one of the most conservative areas in the entire state, definitely in North Texas. And people there were concerned about the earthquakes, not just people that are liberals, concerned about earthquakes. So the last time we had the issue on earthquakes, that was how the discussion ended up being deduced down to. And so I wanted to bring that up. Dr. Shaw, good to see you again from my days serving on the Environmental Regulation Committee with Mr. Weber. And want to talk with you about something that's come out lately, and that is the pro-business stance that's bad for Texas. That's been talked about a lot. I know that one of your mission is on TCEQ is sustainable economic development. But the failure of Texas to adopt the 2010 EPA rule has resulted in a backlog of about 80 permits waiting for approval at EPA. This has delayed construction of facilities in Texas ranging from natural gas power plants, natural gas compressors, chemical processing facilities, and has even resulted in a decline in drilling activity in the Barnett Shale in the area that I represent. Wouldn't it have been better for Texas to work with the EPA instead of making lawyers rich and going into these costly court battles?
Congressman, thank you. Certainly, my desired approach is always to work together. And unfortunately, the discussions that we had with EPA were not fruitful in that manner. For example, the letter that the mandate we got from EPA was that we were given about 2 months to decide if we were going to move forward with allowing EPA's regulatory scheme, and we were going to implement that. I'll refresh your memory that at that point, we had no idea what regulating under EPA's program would mean because they had yet to give any information about what BACT, Best Available Control Technology, would mean for regulating greenhouse gases. So at that point, they were asking us to commit to doing something that we arguably determined we didn't have the legal authority to deal with, as well as the fact that we didn't have any understanding of what EPA thought that would mean. And so we felt that it was appropriate, certainly the legal aspect is enough, but that it made sense for us to continue to try to work with EPA to maintain an opportunity to ensure that regulations were not overly draconian. In long term, we're still not out of the woods yet. One of the things I'll remind you of is that EPA passed what's called the tailoring rule, and if you recall, the justification for that was the absurdity doctrine. I believe I may have that right. The absurd results doctrine, in that EPA wanted to avoid the absurd results of having the Clean Air Act applied as written to greenhouse gas regulations, because according to EPA's own number, that would result in literally, I think, 6 million additional permits across the U.S.
No, Dr. Shaw, let me ask you one more question because my time is about to expire here. As someone that is concerned about sustaining economic development, which is part of the mission of your organization, a lawyer for the Texas Pipeline Association said that there's been a lot of flaring of associated gas, and that the delay in the permitting process has put about 48,000 jobs at risk in our state. Again, don't you think that it would have been better to work with the EPA and save these jobs, these 48,000 jobs? Because right now, all the jobs that we're creating in Texas, not all the jobs, but the majority of the jobs that we're creating in Texas are service-related jobs that pay a lot less than these 48,000 jobs would have paid in the oil and gas industry.
Right. As I mentioned, one, we have the legal authority, and two, had we not taken the stand, I would contend that we would have even greater loss of jobs had we not taken a stand to force EPA to base their regulations in science and to have a more reasoned approach moving forward, because this is the tip of the iceberg. Right now, we're looking at, certainly Texas has been performing well relative to other states. Could it have been better? Yes. Would we like that to have happened? Yes. And certainly we're moving, as we've given authority from the Texas legislature, to be the permitting authority for greenhouse gases. But clearly, there are longer-term economic and, I would contend, environmental damages associated with EPA's approach with greenhouse gases at this point. So we took a principled stand. We're going to work, and as we have been, to continue to find ways to streamline the process, but we felt that the immediate cost was less than what the long-term cost would have been.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.